Recording. Oh, hello, everybody. So excited to have you all here. I am Laina let's see. Oh, I guess everybody here is familiar to us. So excited to have you here. It is, I'll share something in a quick little second. Okay, so today is January the 19th. Can you believe it? January is almost over. 2022, time is moving quickly, very, very quickly. So excited. Oh, Miss Kathy, good to have you here with us. Look at that gorgeous picture from Peru. How fun. Well, last week we had a wonderful conversation on lesson 1. It was, oh, where did I put my book? It was lesson 164. Oh, there it is. Sorry about that. Lesson 164. Now are we one with him who is our source? And as I'm watching the world do what it's doing, the evidence is so clear. Those who know that they are in alignment with him, her, that is the source. And those who are aligned with the aspect of ourselves that blocks the source. So we are absolutely fascinating place where we get to see the presence of God incarnated, and we get to see the blocking of God also incarnated. Absolutely. Let's see, people are in the chat. Oh, okay, still coming. All right. Let me take a second. I just came off of having an incredible conversation where the clarity of what happens when we allow God to be the master and when we let money be the master. It's so clear. We operate from grace or from greed. There is no way around it. And greed is nothing more than just selfishness. It's all about me. And the amazing thing about that is that when we understand the way the ego operates and we get how it leads us into the realms of greed, that's when you can begin to see more clearly why the world is as it is. Because greed, it takes time. It takes time to move into the positions of power, generations. You get your children, families who control. And if you don't understand that it all starts, as the Course in Miracles teaches, it all starts from thinking that we're separate from God. Let me fix this. It all starts from thinking that we're separate from God. If we don't get ourselves into a relationship with God again, we cannot break the cycles of greed, because greed comes from lack. You don't understand that there's more than enough. And if you don't understand that there's more than enough, you cannot return to that pure place inside that manifests more. Because if you're operating in that there's not enough means that there's a circle. There's a certain amount, and that's all there is. And you're trying to get as much out of what is there that is finite, and you can't be open to imagination and the co-creation of more. So the world that we're in right now is collapsing under the weight of greed, because they're attempting to just get what is in there. There's no room for creativity that allows for expansion, and contraction is what has to happen. And in that contraction, when people get squeezed and whatever little they have is taken from them, until the point that they have to face that they might also have to lose their life. If you give up your freedom, inevitably you will have to give up your life. Just look at the Holocausts, look at the Inquisitions. That is a pattern of the ego mind. So getting straight with God is the beginning of the purification process that begins to remove these thoughts of limitation and allows us to move into the process of co-creation where there is more. Your imagination adds to it. It is a corrupted mind that operates with limitation and wants to take it from everybody so it can have more. It's fascinating, fascinating. But that's what we have to see. Humanity has to face that corrupted part in ourselves, that virus in the head. And the only way to face the virus in the head is either you become aware of it in yourself, or as most of the people who are completely asleep, they have to see it so blatantly outside of themselves that just totally rattles their reality. And we're almost to the point that those who are aware and are standing out here can see it. We are going to be observing those who are completely asleep have the world totally collapse, and what they think is real fall under the weight of the egoic illusion that has been running the world. Oh my goodness, waking up is a beautiful thing, but when you wake up and you realize that we really have been slaves, we have been slaves in a system of total and complete selfishness, and pulling out is what returns us to our sovereignty. And you only can keep your sovereignty if you are at a level of acceptance that this is a game. And everybody who's playing the greed game, we all signed up to play the game of separation, the game of greed. We all signed up for that as souls. Everybody's playing that game. What is happening is people are changing the game. They don't want to play that game. I just posted a meme about that today. That's actually pretty funny that I'm talking about it now. But we have to get clear that the game, sorry about that, the game is breaking down. It is not sustainable, and it has to collapse for something new to get created instead. So unmute yourselves and tell me, in the last week, what are some nuggets, examples in your life that you of changes in your life that you can attribute to A Course in Miracles to give you more peace, to give you more clarity, and to help you unplug from the matrix. So just unmute yourself, please. We always love those examples. Don't be shy. We're family here. Unmute yourself.
I will share something, Laina. This is Kathy.
All right, Tom, you're after Kathy.
So for me, and I know you and I have discussed this, I'm really using A Course in Miracles and to focus on my own internal freedom within marriage, and really releasing anything that feels like restriction or owning another person, and really just coming to the commitment of the now moment, trusting that whatever is in my now moment is what I give my love and my focus to. And that's often my husband, and I'm grateful for that, and really just releasing those expectations of it being a certain way, just trusting the now moment. That's when I'm really calling on the Course in Miracles for assistance moving through.
And I can assure you, sister, the Course will help you get there if you have the willingness to take what it says literally. That is why in the introduction, it says you are welcome to take from it whatever you want, whenever you want it, but you do not have permission to alter the teachings, because the ego wants to change the teachings to give itself permission to believe, it's delusion, but that just keeps us stuck in the trap of never living in the now moment where everything exists perfectly. So thank you for your willingness and your clarity that that's so important, because without freedom, there is no love. And we've been taught conditional love, and conditional love does not set beings free. Conditional love binds them, puts them in chains to us. And it's crazy. That's what codependency is all about, and which keeps us from finding our own inner joy, because I can't be happy if you're not doing X, Y, or Z. And that's the prison, is that my joy is dependent on what you are doing. And we cannot control people to do what we need them to do for us to be happy. It's just not possible, because everybody's idea of joy and happiness is different. And then we can't celebrate everybody's happiness is because we don't have our own happiness on a solid foundation. Thank you. Thank you again for that. And you, Mr. Tom, how are things shifting for you with more clarity that you've been receiving?
I was reminded of lesson 5 yesterday. I was in a spirituality meeting, and the topic was, if we're not in faith that God loves us and that we can be love, we can be God's love, then we're in fear.
Yeah.
And that there's nothing in between. It's just some interpretation of one or the other. And so when I started to say something, what I was going to say is that my wife and I, about 10 days ago, were, pretty much recovered from COVID, and that we just have a couple of lingering symptoms, which are brain fog and weird smells. I did not, as soon as I said my wife and I have recovered as of 10 days ago from COVID, this guy in the room of about 25 people looked at me and said, then what the F are you even doing here? He said it very aggressively, and he was very close to me. So he leaned forward, which I view as an aggressive posture towards me. And all of a sudden, it's like I had this drop-down menu come up in my brain of, these are the ways that I have chosen to react in the past to a sudden sign of anger and aggression and fear from somebody who's entering my personal space. But here's a neutral response where I keep my face just calm, and I just plainly stated, my wife and I came out of the full quarantine last week. So we've tested negative. There's no issues here with my being here. And then I just went on and shared what I had to say about the subject. I noticed in that moment that, after this class, I had like 3 or 4 people come up to me and say, man, we saw the sudden look come on your face. And then we saw you like just change and become peaceful with what was going on. That's awesome. How do you do that? And, but it was interesting that they said for a split second, you looked like you were starting to get upset. But for me, in that moment, it was just a small particle of time and space in that moment that suddenly just stretched out.
Yeah.
And I had all the time in the world to make a loving decision, which is treat this guy with neutrality, to calm him down and just continue your statement instead of reacting to his fear and anger. And that's a direct result of Course in Miracles.
Oh, that's beautiful. And, if these people want to know, how did you make that shift? Invite them to our Wednesday chat. But here's the thing. I want to thank you for being very, very willing, very conscious about what you were doing, because, that lesson that you're talking about is we're never upset for the reason we think. That person isn't attacking you because you're a bad person that needs to defend yourself. That person's attacking because they're scared. They're scared. So you gave them the information that he needed to appease that fear. Because what we do not understand, the reason we've all been enslaved, is because our mind has been deliberately trained into the only way that you can protect yourself is by attacking another. And it is shown to us specifically through the military, which obviously you're quite familiar with since you served there. But through the military, we are trained into believing that somebody does something we don't like, we're okay to take the whole force of the country and take them down. And then that's reinforced on a local level with the police. So, and then that gets reinforced in the homes. The parent, if I don't like what you said, I can take you down. I'm going to send you to your room. I'm going to swat your butt. I'm going to send you to the principal's office. I'm going to fire you. We have so many reinforced patterns inside of the enslavement machine that basically perpetuates this idea that if somebody doesn't like what's going on, we can pounce on them. The thing that they don't teach, because then it would end the enslavement, is that those fears are unfounded. The fears are unfounded if you come to discover the truth of who you are. And because the world is enslaved, because precisely we have so many fears that have been created, placed in our minds. We're afraid of the water. We are afraid of the air. We're afraid of, the neighbor. We're afraid of everybody. We're afraid of the IRS. We're afraid of the bank. We're afraid of our boss. We're afraid of our children. We're in constant fury, afraid you're going to get in an accident when you drive. You're afraid that somebody's going to break into your house. We perpetuate, and the media feeds us all these fears to keep us in a total incomplete state of hyper vigilance. That is what greed is all about. It's about me. I got to take care of me. I got to protect me. So to be able to shift the whole of humanity has taken time. Jesus came in, and he has steadily, we have steadily seen the shift of humanity little by little by little, until now we have created critical mass of people who don't want to do it that way anymore. And you, in that group were an example. You were the living Christ shifting. I can see peace instead of this. I'm not going to be upset for a reason that is not accurate. You would have been upset to defend your selfishness, protect me. But when we care about giving information, it now is for the greater good of all. That's all they needed. How did he react when you said that?
It absolutely shut him down. I mean, I watched his fear just completely evaporate, and then embarrassment over his actions. And for the next hour and a half, the guy never looked at me again. He wouldn't look at me again.
Yeah. And the only other thing that you could do in that case, which the course recommends, is that minds are joined. In our mind, and you probably did this, in our mind, we just say, brother, I love you. You knew not what you were doing. I forgive you. Because our mind sends a frequency. We send a frequency of hate, asshole, how dare you? We send a frequency of love. Oh my goodness, you were calling for love. You were scared. And the part that is scared in all of us is the immature child that got sent into the collective prison. All of us entered the matrix at a very young age, under the age of 7. That part of us is the 2-year-old, the 1-year-old, maybe one that was in the womb, that felt the fear of the mother, felt the fear that she was experiencing, And you know what fear is? We're controllable. And that is what, to me, is one of the most beautiful, profound awarenesses that I got from A Course in Miracles, is that I am never dealing with an adult that is having a breakdown. I am dealing with a child, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old. How would I want to be treated if I was that 2-year-old in fear? Well, we know as parents, we just give them it's okay, it's okay. With an adult, they may not want to hug, but we can say, it's okay, brother. I got my test. It's okay. It's all good, because that ability to respond instead of react is critical with the shit show that's coming, because the matrix is breaking down, meaning that everything that held it together is we're seeing it more and more. I mean, we're seeing all the Fauci information coming up. More and more things are being discovered. We saw all of the fakery around the January 6th stuff. Those videos tell the story. It's coming up. We're seeing politicians who are being exposed for things that they did that were absolutely not okay with children specifically. Those things are coming up. What the pharmaceutical companies are doing, those tests, those allegiances that they had. Now people are finding where they sent money, who got money, how did it get funneled and siphoned to this group versus that group, this person versus that person. It is coming up for us to see clearly that we sold our soul to the devil when we began to believe in this idea that we're separate and should be afraid. So thank you, because one person there got to feel safe in that moment, and 3 or 4 others got to witness it, to go, man, how did you do that? So you are the living Christ. You're the second coming right there. And then they get to be the second comings, and they will go to their communities that you may never be able to ever go to, because you may not travel in those particular circles. But it's a ripple effect. And it started with this being called Jesus, and it's just expanding outward. And the Course in Miracles has put this information, millions of books sold around the world, just dozens of translations. So the message is out there. And when we walk the talk and we are the embodiment of it, it's going to bring a lot of comfort to those who are going to experience the collapse of all they knew. So thank you. Thank you so much. Well, unless somebody had something that they wanted to share, we can go ahead and jump into lesson 164. So appreciate those shares. But just unmute yourself if you want to speak, or raise your hand on your Zoom. And in the meantime, let's go to lesson 164. So the title again is, Now Are We One with Him Who is Our Source? And that's exactly what Kathy wants to find, is the source within. So she's not disturbed by what's going outside. And Tom had an experience of aligning with the source that's already within him, so that he wouldn't be swayed by what was going on outside of him. And that, of course, created that beautiful experience for other people to witness, which gives him validation, gives you validation that, yeah, you're doing it. You can do it. Even when people see it, you know it for sure. So last week we got through the first 3 paragraphs. Let's start with paragraph number 4. This is a powerful paragraph. Actually, well, I say it all the time. It's one of my favorites in the course. Okay, the whole course is my favorite. All right, paragraph 4. There is a silence into which the world cannot intrude. There is an ancient peace you carry in your heart and have not lost. There is a sense of holiness in you the thought of sin can never touch. All this today you will remember. We were born bringers of that love, peace, joy. We brought that to the planet. That we are the incarnation of what God is. That peace is in us. And then we get little by little trained out of our peace when those around us model for us, number one, that they're not at peace. Every time mom or dad loses their patience with us, we are hearing, oh, I'm in charge of how they feel. Other people are in charge of how we feel. And when we're conditioned out of our peace being ours, we descend in consciousness. We literally drop. We are born here and then we drop, but we drop to the level of consciousness that we left at the last time. So the last incarnation. So some people will drop into egoic pride and not necessarily have to experience being evil to one another, but stays in that ego pride. We know a lot of those people. I'll tell you, for me, a perfect example is, I don't want to get censored, so we'll just call him Mr. T. A perfect example of somebody who was able to incarnate in an unbelievable amount of pride, but not necessarily use the power and the money to create evil around the world. We have a lot of people who entered into this world and they ended up in positions of power, who creating evil is not, it's not difficult. Let me just give you a very simple example of how we are so indoctrinated to deliberately go and bomb a village. We saw Edward Snowden helped us see pictures of helicopters that literally just opened fire on innocent civilians. And that's evil. That is evil. That is not caring about life. You guys have seen me do. Evil spelled backwards is to live. So to be able to not let somebody else live is evil. Murdering one person is evil. Having the power to murder a lot of people in the name of protection is evil. Doesn't matter how you slice it. The course is really clear. It's either feeding evil or supporting life. You're either doing things that allow for the freedom of every being to express and expand themselves, or you're doing everything that you can to suppress them. Whether it's one or millions, it does not matter. That is something that we have got to get clear. It's the work that we're here to do. We're here to ascend in consciousness. We're here to look at, why do I need to be greedy? Why do I need to be selfish? Why do I not trust the world? Why do I not trust others? Why do I not trust the voice inside of me that is calling me towards peace? Well, here it tells you that voice doesn't leave you. There is a silence in you and the world cannot intrude on it. It's there. Our work, the whole process of awakening, is to come inside and find that voice, reconnect with that voice and amplify it. That's why we've got to activate our throat chakra around the world. People are using their voice to speak up and say, no, I don't want to be controlled anymore. It's evil to control people. Absolutely evil to control people. And I almost said especially with, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be especially with. It's evil to control people with a lie. But the only reason people have been controlled with a lie is because we don't know the truth of who we are. So it's been a process of descending into being controllable. You're only controllable down here. This is the place when you start just getting by, as this chart tells us, when you start getting by, you're losing your courage. And then you're dropping into where you can be controlled, because you'll sell your soul. You don't have the courage to stand up for yourself anymore. So you'll do whatever you need to do for survival. You're no longer operating from a peaceful place that has access to creativity. So you draw, like draws like unto themselves. You draw those people who can feel that frequency and draw to it to co-create things that might add more evil to the planet. Even if it's stealing from somebody, that's bringing evil to the planet, because it's creating suffering for a being Of course, everything happens for a reason. So clearly there are lessons there. But we need to wake up, find that silence inside, and begin the journey of ascension to the higher ways of thinking, to think with God and not with the ego. All this you will remember today because it happens now. In this moment, this is possible. Faithfulness in practicing today will bring rewards so great and so completely different from all things you sought before that you will know that here your treasure is and here your rest. Kathy, this speaks directly to you. Your peace, your rest is inside of you. What is it that disturbs your peace is it's going to be fear. Number one, it's always fear. That you cannot be okay if that person happens to be doing something that they might want to be doing. If they're happy, you lose your happiness. And that is a lie that we have all been raised with. So we've got to get to the place that we ask the questions. What makes me think I am not going to be happy? What makes me think I'm not going to be safe? Because this other one, and it doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't have to be a spouse. It can be your partner in business. It could be your neighbor. It could be your child. It could be a stranger. Whatever they are doing does not have the power to disturb your peace unless you believe that it can. If that belief is not there, that others are responsible for your peace and your peace and happiness cannot be disturbed, because all disturbances can only happen through our permission. And that is something that is very, very difficult to get for those minds who got trained in that it's your fault. You made me feel bad. Right now, we've got, Jody, I see your hand up. Let me finish my train of thought. Right now, we have this government sanctioned permission to tell people, you're going to make me sick. Your illness is going to make me sick. Now think about this. How can their illness make you sick unless there's weakness within your immunity? Wouldn't you want to spend more time recognizing where are there gaps in my immunity? See, we have been conditioned into this whole idea of others can make you sick, so that we stay in a dependent, well, then you've got to do something so that I'm well. Keeps us completely from taking full responsibility, because the course is really clear. And let me be the first one to say, I trust 100%. I don't change the meaning of the course, but I am very honest about where am I in relationship to the meaning. The course tells me that I'm not a body, I am free, that illness is not part of my reality, that it is something that I experience because my mind buys into it. Where am I in relationship to that is my work. So nobody out there is responsible for my well-being. My well-being is, I'm responsible for my relationship to my allowance of the well-being that I absolutely 100% trust is mine. That's why I don't let somebody else have power over my well-being. Let's see. Eli, you've got a question. So true. Do you clean the fish tank or vaccinate the fish? There you go. I love that. That's a great analogy. Yes, totally. I clean up my body and go to see you for assistance because I know I couldn't shift it on my own. But I go to somebody who understands that I only want natural things that activate my own body's immunity, not put poison that poisons then my ability for immunity. Miss Jody, please unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can remember. It was I put my hand up a little bit ago.
Oh,
The state, no, it's okay. The statement, well, you were talking about the government and people outside controlling us and trying to control us. And what I heard inside was that nobody has that power, because it's like you said after, we're not a body. So nobody has that power to control anything about me. And you think about Jesus, nobody had the power to control him, even on the cross. Here I am, the Jew, saying this is kind of blows my mind.
Well, he was a Jew too. He was not a Christian.
I know, I still struggle with that a bit. But everybody out there fighting with passion, including myself when I go there, or anything other than love, feels to me that people are believing that somebody outside of them can control them, and there is no separation. So none of it is real. And I'm witnessing a lot of people going into the matrix trying to change, but really everything is exactly in this now moment, the way it is meant to be. And that's what I wanted to share.
Yes, and when we move to the level of acceptance, yes, then everything is as it is, including our lack of trust. It is as it is. It is just showing us, where are we in relationship to the truth? Where are we in relationship to that which is totally and completely the silence inside of us that the world cannot intrude on? It's our relationship to the core of our beingness is where the work has to happen. But everybody who returns to the core of their beingness leaves the matrix. There's no need for the matrix. Then we do what the Course in Miracles says. We co-create a happy dream. Because when people band together that are operating in sovereignty, they don't feed the matrix. There's no need to buy into lies. There's no need to be controlled. There's no need to be medicated in allopathic ways. There's no need to buy food out of a box. You return to the place of nature. Nature then becomes important. And when we return to nature, it's because we're back in our natural state of beingness. So we call nature out there, but nature is natural and it's a reflection of us. You know, the world has been poisoned. The planet has been poisoned as a reflection of our mind was poisoned. When we clean up our mind, the environment will be clean, because we won't be tolerating the level of pollution that has been possible. But the mind has to get comfortable enough to understand that it's been over thousands of years that this process has happened. So to come to the place, as you're saying, Jody, you don't have to believe, just be an acceptance of it is what it is. We're not bodies, we're real. To come to that place, you've got to go through, how did we get here? And those are the steps that, to me, the Course in Miracles has been so powerful in helping identify. Because once you start asking questions about how the mind works, how it works, you then begin to see the outside is a reflection of me. So if I am in separation and I am in greed, I begin to do things that are greedy. And people in jobs where there's potential for more and more greed, they go up, they move up in status, they do more greedy things. That lifts their status, and then they can do bigger things. So the world today has people who have power for very big things, like those who want to create a new world order. They have so much money and perceived sense of power, even though none of them are elected, to create this dominance. Well, that's because it all started way, way back, when the mind was not in alignment with the truth of who we are. They were not at peace. So the only way to stop that insanity is for us to come inside and accept that it is what it is, because it's a projection of an inner condition. And that's why those sayings, be the change you want to see in the world, there's not enough pummeling people into the truth. Cannot do it. You cannot beat them up because they go into self-protection. Then you're wrong. And no matter how much truth you're saying, they can't hear it. That's why we have to see the evidence with our own eyes, as each and every one of us, has had to see what's going on in their world to be able to make the correction. So thank you for sharing that, Jody. So the last part of that sentence, the final sentence in chapter 4, here your treasure is, and here your rest. We are never going to find peace if we don't come inside to discover our treasure. The treasure is our sovereignty, which comes from being one with the source that created us. Now are we one with him who is our source. Do you realize that to be able to come to the acceptance of that, talking about you, Jody, growing up Jewish, you didn't grow up hearing the truth about Jesus, because if we talked about the truth about Jesus, we would never call him a Christian. He was not. He just happened to be a Jewish person who was teaching about God. Where is God? Kingdom of heaven is within. I and the Father are one. So it was not convenient to let all these people know. And now we are one with him who's the source of everything. Well, if God is the source of everything, then I don't need to listen to the Pharisees. I don't need to listen to the rabbis. I don't need to listen to the Romans. I don't need to go listen to other people. I've got my direct line to source. And then you discover that source is love. It would never have you attack your neighbor. It would never have you hurt anybody. It would never have you want to take from your neighbor. So our treasure is that there's nothing missing. All that we desire is within. Our work is to change the mind. That's what takes time. Once that mind clears, the ability to manifest. And by the way, when somebody goes all the way in, they are never seeking for anything external. Those desires go away because money doesn't add anything to you. Stuff does not add anything to you. If anything, you see that it's work. You got to keep it up. You got to clean it. You got to deal with it. So you will know somebody that really comes inside. There is zero need for anything outside, which is a paradox. Because when you don't need anything outside, there is no lack of what you need, because you always have true meaning of abundance. I heard this from a channel called Bashar. The true meaning of abundance, somebody who has a spirit of abundance, is that they know they'll have what they need when they need it. Why do you need extra? If you don't need it in this moment, it's that's hoarding. That's a mind that's afraid, that's in lack. But if you trust that you'll always have what you need when you need it, you walk around in total peace. Those are the most dangerous people to the matrix, the ones who don't need anything externally. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't need the money for the mortgage. We're stuck in those agreements. Well, but your peace is what brings to you those opportunities. I mean, I've watched it happen for me all along. When I let go of my need to have tons of money, I've never been in lack. I've always had what I needed when I needed it, magically. And I'm not going to say magically. It's a direct reflection of my knowingness that I will have. And it took me years to get to that level of peace, that when I need something, it shows up. It shows up. Absolutely. I trust the process because I know God is my source and it's a loving God. It does not put obstacles in my way anymore. Well, let me clarify that. My ego doesn't have permission to put obstacles in my way anymore. And if I come up against something like in this house search where there's a little discomfort, it's me judging the process and not trusting. It's never the thing outside of me. And we've got to come to the place where rest abides. That is where our treasure is. It's inside. And the only reason it's difficult to go inside is because to come inside is to first admit that you've got some pain you got to look at, because that's where people are drawn to come inside. Typically, they're judging something's off, and then we come inside. But once you face all of these things that are not true about you, all that is left is your treasure. The lies faced reveal the treasure that has been placed in you, because if you're breathing, there's a treasure. If you transition, you just took your treasure back up and you're going to come back next time and hide the treasure in the next body package. That's just like, a present. The box is the body, the treasure is inside. And then, the bow, all that stuff is all the masks that we put on to look better. to attempt to look better. Paragraph 5. This is the day when vain imaginings part like a curtain, the illusion parts like a curtain, to reveal what lies beyond them. Now is what is really there made visible, while all the shadows which appear to hide it merely sink away. That's exactly what we're watching. The parting of the curtain. People are starting to see more clearly. And what we're seeing is the shadows that appeared to be hiding. They've always been in plain sight. The corruption, the liars, the cheaters have always been there. But those who saw them were always called conspiracy theorists, anarchists, anti-government, anti-this, anti-that. They were labeled something to make the compliant rest of the slaves side with them and complain or call for their lynching, or they're being shot, or they're being imprisoned. You know, if you look back on history, it is really clear that when somebody was speaking truth, got crucified like Jesus, there was a crowd cheering. Yes, that person, let's get rid of him. And the reason they were cheering is because in their fear of that he could be speaking the truth, in their fear, they sided with who they thought protected them and gave them life, which was the punishers. They thought, well, I better side with them and keep my life, not knowing that they were actually giving up their life, because it's not life to live in fear. That's not life. The Course wants us to find life inside and then live fearlessly to the point that death doesn't scare you. And if your body is used as an example, as Jesus did, it doesn't hurt you. Those of you who are in my Monday night mastery class, you know, we've been talking about that. We read Jesus's words. He said he did not suffer through the crucifixion. That was not no suffering, because his mind wasn't giving the power to the body. His mind was totally appeased. He found his treasure and he knew he was eternal. So he just let the body go through the process, but his mind was not sending signals to the body to be in pain, because his mind had no doubt, I'm not a body, I am free. So we have to find right now, in the middle of what's happening, many have to find the willingness to be so free that death doesn't scare them. Because those who are willing to die for the cause of truth, they are setting an example for those who need to see what real courage is about. You know, courage, you have to move past your pride. And pride in this body, in this vessel, is one of the biggest stumbling blocks to find your peace. Those who are really understand the Course really well, you know that there's only 4 obstacles to peace. One of them is fear of death. If you're afraid of death, you are controllable. You'll do anything to preserve your body, and which means you sell your soul. You'll do whatever the boss man tells you, because you're not that free. But once you are willing to give up your body, you are totally, totally free. What else can they take from you? What else can they take from you? So these shadows that we are seeing is like Dorothy opening up the curtain and seeing the whatever, I forget the person behind the curtain, what their name was, the king, no, the wizard. So when you pull the curtain, it's a little midget. All of these people who think they have a lot of power, they are scared to death that we will find out that they really don't have power. Actually, they're scared to death that we find our own power, because then we won't listen to them. But as long as we're in fear, they're in power, because our fear is what empowers them. Our power takes away the fear. They have no power over us. It just works that way. It goes hand in hand. So then the next sentence, number 3, now is the balance righted and the scale of judgment left to him who judges true. When we get really clear about what's happening here, divine beings chose to have a human experience. We descend to whatever level of consciousness we were at before. We are there and we play. Once you come below Pride, you play the game of karma. Karma is nothing more than a pendulum that swings left to right. The pendulum operates, from here down, swinging really big. The human, when you enter, the pendulum is balanced right here. And our work is to come up to where it is at rest. But as you keep going down, the pendulum swings further and further and further. And each lifetime is an opportunity to experience the other side of the pendulum. Many of us are experiencing it in this lifetime because we're waking up and we have to see it. That's what the Course wants us to understand. Everything is cause and effect. You think a thought, it's going to create a manifestation. That's why even a thought of adultery in the mind is just as strong as actual physical adultery. So, and I've done both. So I know I have felt it inside of me, even as a thought. I felt the difference. So we've got to get really, really clear how powerful we are, how absolutely powerful we are. And the balance will be righted when we let God be the judge of things, not us. We have the projection of the legal system. So we let a judge proclaim a judgment because we're giving to people power that God said we're not supposed to have. You shall not judge. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Well, God doesn't judge us. God knows we're non-physical. You're non-physical beings. You're going to go down there and play with these temporary bodies. I'm not going to judge you for playing cops and robbers. I'm not going to judge you for doing all these horrible things that you're doing. I'm not going to judge you, but you have a conscience. Your conscience is your meter. You cannot come into your peace if you're operating unconsciously. If you're not clear about honoring life, you are not in your conscience operating with clarity. You're not understanding who you are. We didn't have the ability to enter into a physical body from a non-physical state to hurt the bodies. We come into physical bodies to have fun with these bodies, to enjoy the bodies, to enjoy them in whatever way you want to enjoy them. But when you are operating consciously, you never hurt another being. It is not a premeditation. If somebody feels hurt by your actions, it is because they've got their consciousness is not straight in who they really are. But nobody in alignment with truth will do anything to hurt another. It's just not possible, because all that you have when you realize we're all one, expressing ourselves here on this playground called Earth for the joy of it, because love, joy, and peace is what we are. It's a matter about connecting with people to co-create things that serve all of humanity. All of the wonderful natural healing things, all what would give us free electricity, what would give us free energy for moving about, vehicles, transportation, clean, all of those things. It all exists right here. And those who have discovered that are enemies of the state, the powers that be that are all in, it's all about me, and are greedy and need to take more. But when we find our peace, and I'm observing it, and I know many of you are too, you're watching the groups that are emanating, people using their own monies to correct things, people that are coming together and have the formulas for the good, healthy stuff, coming together to create these med beds or to operate as Dr. Eli does, helping and healing other people, because the knowledge is there. The knowledge is there. But we got to unplug from the matrix, pull back the curtain, and see the shadowy figure that really has no power over us unless we say it does. That's their greatest fear. That's their greatest fear. Sentence number 4, and in his judgment, God's judgment, will a world unfold in perfect innocence before your eyes. Forgive them, they know not what they do. Those who went to the depths of that they could play in, if they came on planet playground and they went into the lowest and most selfish possible way that they could go to, lowest frequency, they can do that. They're innocent souls who chose to play that game. But here's the thing. Those innocent souls who chose to play the game of evil are doing a service to the ones who need to see that evil and say, no more, I'm going up. It's as if some go down for others to look at that behavior and say, no more, no more. And that is what's happening in the world. We're going to see a handful of evil beings who have dropped into their evilness so that billions can see and choose differently. And in that choosing differently, in these beings' light, these evildoers are going to get sucked up into the light. Whether they do it here and change their mind, many of them will do it when they experience the death process and they return to the light. And once they see, oh my gosh, wow, I didn't have to do that. They can correct and choose not to incarnate again and do that horrible thing. They can correct their consciousness up there and come in a higher level. Yes, Miss Cat. Oh, no? I saw your hand was up. Oh, okay. No, nothing. All right. So now sentence number 5. Now will you see it with the eyes of Christ? Now is its transformation clear to you? You cannot know that you are one with source and believe that nobody else is. That is pure ego, spiritualized ego who thinks, oh yeah, I'm one with God, but not everybody else. I know I lived in that space. I'm one with God. You need to listen to me because I'm hearing this guidance and you're not. That was part of my process, part of our journey. And right now we're seeing a real big split. Everything is splitting between truth and illusion. We are seeing those who walk the talk and those who don't. And all the love and light people that don't walk it, that don't actually live inside of that frequency, there's a bifurcation happening. And we cannot ascend if we don't forgive them for not knowing what they're doing. You cannot be of a higher frequency than one that you're judging. They're talking it but not walking it, unless you walk it. And the way we walk it is to recognize all souls are our brothers and sisters. Actually, there are over souls, there are groups of souls on this planet, but beyond that, there's only one soul. It's the soul of God that divides itself like cells divide themselves. It divides itself to have more opportunities for play, for game on this planet, for incarnation. So when you see one who is not walking the talk, it's a call for love. Can you forgive them? Forgive yourself if you judge them. But until we get back to this recognition and see things with the eyes of God, our transformation will not be clear to us because we're still operating by information about separation that says, I can judge them, I'm better than they are. Paragraph number 6 says, brother, this day is sacred to the world. The day that you recognize we're all one. We're all one with God, all one with the source. Your vision given you from far beyond all things within the world looks back on them in a new light. Once we get to the place that we can see clearly, it's our job to look at the world and recognize where are things calling for love. Send love. You know, on a regular basis, I send so much love to our president. I mean, I just send sweet little Brandon a lot of love. And I send so much love to little Fauci. And I know you might be saying, but that's condescending. But to me, they are children. They are little beings that are hurting, looking for attention. And that's the way that they're getting their attention. And when I look at them, all that I can see right now is this beautiful, beautiful soul that they're not accessing. And how are they going to learn they have a soul if I don't become an example of it? So even from over here, I'm just, Brother Fauci, I desire for you to have your conscience get activated so that you can find redemption while you're still alive and don't have to have the death experience where you might get executed. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. If you want to play the game of feeling what it's like to be executed, that's okay, or be imprisoned or whatever. But from my heart to them, it allows my heart to feel the light that I am when I see them in that light, because I cannot feel my light if I am judging them. And it's so clear to me when judgments enter my mind, and I've got to go, oh, let me pull myself out. First one I forgive is me for coming out of alignment. I moved out of my center. I left my treasure. I left my inner peace, came out to the outer world to inform me, dropped down in frequency, and got stung by my own ego's story. So I forgive myself for listening to the ego. I raise my frequency, remember the truth of who we are, come back into my peace. And from there, I flow whatever I want to flow, because I know my thoughts have power. They are creative. And I spend time imagining the world that I want to see. And, I see what's there, but I spend most of my time is in contemplation of what's possible. That's why I love listening to channeled information of those who are speaking of the beauty of what's possible, because that keeps my mind in what I want to see. I've got to believe that it is possible so that I can experience the manifestation of it. And what you see becomes the healing and salvation of the world. The valuable and valueless are both perceived and recognized for what they are. And what is worthy of your love receives your love, while nothing to be feared remains. We are sorting out. The world values material stuff, status, external things. Our soul values love, joy, extension, service, assistance, collaboration, co-creation, trust. The soul values trust and knowing that all is well, knowing that all is going to be taken care of. The world values the material things that it can sell because it believes that it's got to get more. There's not enough, blah, 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 blah. The soul says, if you let me imagine it, there'll always be more than enough. All I need to do is putting it in a mind that is totally pure, like a child's mind. But we have to become like little children, and that imagination creates a manifestation. But for us to move to the world that is going to be manifesting quickly what we desire, we have to leave the world of the manifested out there as being what we desire. We've got to desire from here, from a place of purity. And then, of course, the sharing it, the abundance, flowing it is going to become a natural thing. And once you align with love, you will not want to have the frequency of fear, because it would be like in a, give you a visual of a pond, a still pond. When we have an ego mind, imagine the mind as that still pond. When we are born, that pond is very still. Then we learn little by little. They start throwing pebbles, and then rocks, and big rocks and boulders. That's why the mind is like a monkey mind, because constantly the world is filling it and throwing stuff. For a while, you don't even know that you've got all this commotion going on until you pull one of the boulders out and you realize, oh, okay. And then you pull another boulder and it gets a little quieter in your mind. You stop believing the old stories of abandonment or so-and-so doesn't love me. Then you pull a couple of the rocks out. Religion teaches you this or government teaches you that. And then you get to where you are just, mainly fragments, those little pebbles. And they're the little judgments, but they still disturb your peace of mind because they're being thrown into that pond. When you learn to quiet the mind and it's totally quiet, the big boulders, the big stories of worthlessness, unworthiness, unlovability, abandonment, the rocks, the beliefs that are not true, that you get controlled by. When those things are not in there, and you just get to where you can see your judgments pretty quickly, and you stop judging, your pond is very still. The minute you make one judgment, oh, who did they think that? You can feel that pond like it's a boulder being thrown in because it will disturb the peace. I don't know if that visual gives you clarity, but when your mind is quiet, you don't want one freaking pebble. You don't want a single judgment, a single sense of righteousness, because you realize that the ripple effect is at low frequency. Where is that frequency happening? Where's that ripple? Here. My judgments don't put ripples out there. If anything, most people, if I were to judge them, they don't care. At least not the people that I travel with, because they've got a higher consciousness. If I judge them, they're like, oh, okay, well, that's Laina's shit. But if you are traveling with people who are in that low frequency, like Tom's example, he was about to throw a boulder in his pond to defend himself. And then he pulled that back and went, no, I'd rather have peace instead of this. I'm not upset for the reason I think. I don't need to defend myself. I don't need to listen to that ego story that this person's comments can affect me. And that is what we are being told right here. What is worthy of your love receives your love. You're worthy of your love. You love yourself, while nothing to be feared remains. You don't want anything that speaks of the frequency of fear, which is judgments and resentments and guilt and shame. All of those things come from fear. The next paragraph says, we will not judge today. We will receive but what is given us from judgment made beyond the world. We are going beyond the world where there is no judgment to see things clearly. It's a whole bunch of immature children running the world. And they wear suits and they make a lot of money, and we call them politicians, or we call them heads of corporations or head of the military, but they're just souls pretending to have an experience. Our work is to remind them of the truth of who they are. We don't have to say it to their face, but if you know it in your heart, that's as good as done. And when all of us know that none of us has more power over another, that we're all equal, the game of insanity stops. It stops. But first, we have to have a bunch of people unplug from that. And that's what's happening around the world, is we're having connections beyond this world so we can get the truth of who we are. So sentence 3, paragraph 7, our practicing today becomes our gift of thankfulness for our release from blindness and from misery. Every time I stop judging, it's a gift. Oh my God, I'm so grateful that I know I don't have to poison myself. I am so grateful that I know that I can be the presence of love, because that's what I am. I am so thankful that the gratitude is for me for remembering the truth. And when I remember the truth, I'm in alignment with God. When I am feeling gratitude for remembering that I am love, that's the only thing that God in the Course in Miracles tells us it wants any from us, is our gratitude for the fact that we were created powerful and loving. If we are grateful for our power and our love, that is the only thing that God needs from us. And it doesn't need it, but once we recognize it, then we're all operating in the game of love, and that is what lets God expand. See, while we're operating in the game of fear, the ego's ruling everything and we're contracting. And that's what will destroy this planet. And there's been other civilizations here that have destroyed themselves because they don't expand into what God says is possible. They let the ego take control. All that we see will but increase our joy, because its holiness reflects our own. So you got to see it in them to feel it in you. We stand forgiven in the sight of Christ, with all the world forgiven in our own. The minute you forgive yourself, you will not want to throw a pond or a pebble of judgment in your pond. And then the whole world is forgiven with you. If you're not judging, you're enjoying what is. We bless the world as we behold it in the light in which our Savior looks on us, and offer it the freedom given us through his forgiving vision, which is not our own. We say, okay, God, if you're not judging anybody, If you love all souls equally, let me love all souls equally. The next paragraph, open the curtain and you're practicing by merely letting go all things you think you want. Your trifling treasures put away and leave a clean and open space within your mind where Christ can come and offer you the treasure of salvation. Yes, Jesus the Jew. He has need of your most holy mind to save the world. Is not this purpose worthy to be yours? Is not Christ's vision worthy to be sought above the world's unsatisfying goal? If Jesus can be peaceful on a cross with nails going through his hands, well, that's who I want to learn from. I don't want to learn from anybody in this world that's peddling something that makes them, look better or have more money or whatever. That's not my teacher. My teachers are no longer of this world. My teachers, where I want to go to, is to somebody, to Jesus, to that Christ consciousness. Now I do go to human teachers who have taught me how to get there. That's a different story. If I'm offering steps for you to get to that relationship with Christ, that's the work that I want to do. I want to teach you for you to connect with your inner teacher. Last paragraph. Let not today slip by without the gifts it holds for your receiving, your consent, and your acceptance. If you don't accept that the truth is the truth, if you don't consent to your own sovereignty, you will consent to being a slave to those who have a different game planned for you. Either you're going to play the game with God or you're going to play the game with the ego. Ego is all about greed, which means only one of them thinks that they're going to win. God's game, we all win because we're all one. So you got to decide, are you going to consent and accept the truth of who you are? Because you have to, that's free will. We can change the world if you acknowledge them. You may not see the value your acceptance gives the world, but this you surely want. You can exchange all suffering for joy this very day. Practice in earnest, and the gift is yours. Would God deceive you? Can this promise fail? Can you withhold so little when his hand holds out complete salvation to his sons and daughters? We don't realize how powerful we are because we have been conditioned by the deceivers into believing that we are less powerful than we are. How else could they play the game of cowboys and Indians unless they told us that we were the Indians and we have to be, shot down, we got to get killed? And we got lots of physical examples of that. We've got those who came here on the cavalry and got rid of all the Indians that were here. So it gets played out physically, but that's what happens internally. If you think of yourself as an Indian and not good enough, then the cowboys are going to get you. If we think that we can't make any decisions without the government telling us that it's okay, then we're not going to be okay. If we don't listen to what the medical doctor says, trained by the pharmaceutical companies, and I can't get healed, well, that's just giving your power away. It's okay. You are consenting to that and accepting that. Well, just as easily, you can consent and accept that there is an inner healer and allow those teachers who can give you, help you along your journey. Like I let Dr. Eli help me so that I can bring about more assistance to the physical vessel to heal itself when my mind can't shift right away. So I don't delude myself into thinking that I am here when I'm not. I know where I'm there. I also know where I'm in lower frequencies because I still believe in this physical vessel. But I use this physical vessel now to extend as much love as possible because it's way more fun. It's more joyful and it's easier to be loving. It's just way easier now that I don't have to protect myself because I recognize everybody else is calling for love if they're not extending their love and their joy. So any nuggets from today, would love for you guys to mute yourselves and please share any nuggets that you got. And don't all jump in at once, please. It's so noisy. Miss Cat.
Hey, I'm just looking for some, I guess, a bit of clarity around, like, yesterday, I don't like confrontations with people. I really don't. Disturbs my peace. And so it's a long story, but I went into a business that offered me for a certain amount of money, certain things. So I went in yesterday and they changed it on me and said that I was wrong about what I thought, what the options were, blah, blah, blah. And I just said, no, I know what was offered. I know what the plan was, and I expect you to honor it. And it ended up, the office manager comes out, this big confrontation. And so eventually, after much conversation, I just looked at her and I said, I'm one of the most honest people you will ever meet, that you know, and I don't make things up. And this is my reality. This is what it is. So, but then I found myself like in meditation this morning, thinking about it and thinking, should I have just said, okay, I will pay more, or, I even started questioning myself, which I knew was wrong. And so anyway, then some amount of just, where do we draw the line sometimes with being at peace and standing up for what we know is right? So that's what I felt like I know I was what I was doing. And so how do you, I mean, I never yelled. I was very pleasant with her. I just said, this is not what it's supposed to be. So, and then I quote unquote got my way. I looked at her, I said, you're calling me a liar. And that's when I went into the honesty thing. I said, I'm not making anything up, and I don't lie. So where's the peace in that?
Well, first of all, remember the course teaches us you can be happy or right, but you can't be both.
Yeah,
And the needing to be right is where you would experience that confrontation. And you said you lost your peace because of confrontation. Well, you don't lose your peace because of confrontation. You choose to give your peace away to have confrontation. So you can stay in your peace and very, very happily, because that's what you get is happiness, not righteousness, is happily say, no, that won't work for me. Now, then you've got to think about your options. Is this the only place you could have that thing? And if there are other places, then all right, that's okay. Go find someplace else. If this is the only place, then you can just stay there in your happiness and joyfulness and say, no, you have the thing that I would like to have. I want your product. And this is very important to me. I really want this thing that you guys are so good at making. And this is why I came. But this is where I got this price. And so I really would like for you to honor that, because I love your product. I love your service. So I'm just going to stay here until, I can walk out with that, because I really, really like it. You guys do an amazing job with that thing. And then you're letting them know why you want it. And you can stay in your peace and not lose your serenity whatsoever. Tom, thanks for joining us. Lose your serenity whatsoever if you are in the state of expansion. You've got to expand and share your joy. No, sharing why it is that we value what other people have is usually the best way to begin to get them to turn around. They're not used to people expressing why it is that they want in a good way. It's all the ego kicks in selfishness and greed. This is what's evil in us. It's I want it because it fits my budget and it's me and it's what I saw and it's my truth, versus no, it's an amazing thing. And when I talk to so-and-so, this is the price, or when I saw it, wherever I saw it, and you can point to that, but stay in your peace, expressing what's so wonderful about it. And we lose our serenity because we don't know how to honor ourselves in our serenity. And if there's anything to look in that, and the word that jumped out at me that had any charge was calling you a liar. Well, when you lost your serenity, you lied to yourself that you can't handle confrontation, because you can have a conversation and stand in your peace if you so choose to. So that's the ego trickery. Oh my God, I lost my peace because of what they said. No. You can hold your peace and find it inside of you. Have a conversation with you. Well, this is a child of God. No, I want this price. That's how you honor yourself. That's how you come to the place where you recognize, no, this is the only game in town. And this is how, like, get it from a place of joy where you letting them know what you enjoy. Of course, if there's other options, drive a little further for the other option if it's possible. That's where so many of us, this is where we see attachments. We're attached to certain things and we try to make that thing work. Those are examples that we are going to have to use in our lives. It's like we found a house that we really liked and found out that they don't accept the breed of dog that we happen to have. So sweet Jody helped us figure out a way to correct that. And it may not work in this, and we may not get that house anymore, but that house taught us something that has prepared us with the right paperwork for us to be able to find a house that now we won't have an obstacle, because that house just served to show us something. If I would have just been, oh, we have to have that house, that's the only house, we would have missed the wonderful lesson that was coming from it. So it's a great question, because yes, we're going to have to make some big choices coming up where we're going to have to choose. In many cases, are we willing to spend a little bit more? Are we willing to go a little bit further? Are we willing to go without for maintaining our integrity with what we know is true, with what we know is actually of God versus of the ego? So thank you. Thank you for that question. That's wonderful. Who else? And if nobody else has anything they want to share, just unmute yourselves and let's wish each other a wonderful day. We got so many amazing people here that can wish each other a wonderful day, and that vibration just resonates.
Have an amazing day, you all.
Yes.
Sending you love.
Great day.
Bye, guys.
Have a great
Thank
day,
you.
y'all.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And share these videos far and wide. Let's get everybody to know the truth about who they are. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you, Vicky.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Love you. Love you.
You too.